Hi guys. So today's going to be a little informational video and I'm going to talk about appraisal measurements for your home. If you currently own a home or you want to sell a home, it's very important for you to check the appraisal measurements that show up in the Central Appraisal District, the tax office. So what I've noticed is that oftentimes the square footage that shows up at the Central Appraisal District, where they send your, where they get your value and then they generate what your bill should be, they often don't have the same or the correct measurements. I've had this happen quite a bit as of late. I had a person call me. I had actually sold the home to their neighbor. And so they were thinking about selling. And so when I looked in the history from when they originally bought it from the builder, it showed it was like 2,546 square feet, something like that. And then when I looked on the tax office, it actually showed it was like 2,900 and change. And that's a big difference, right? And so a lot of times when we come up with values as agents, we base it on the square footage because we want to be able to compare apples to apples, right? So I said to them, why don't you guys look in your emails, because your lender, when you purchased the home, needed to have gotten an appraisal done. And I want you to look for that email for that appraisal report, not for value, because value is only good on an appraisal for 6 months, but for the actual physical measurements. Because when they bought the house, the appraiser actually physically went out there and measured the property, right? And that's part of that appraisal report. So they looked and they couldn't find it. I said, okay, well then we need to hire an appraiser to go out and measure for you. Now, they're not going to do a full-blown appraisal. They're only going to go out and measure the property. So they did. They went out and we got the results back yesterday. That property is actually 2,711 square feet, which is great. It's not as big as the central appraisal. And we can only use two forms of measurements, either or actually three. A builder can use their measurements, which is their floor plan. But if the workers go out and put the stakes down to pour concrete, if they go over a few inches this way or that way, it can make a big difference in the square footage overall, right? So if we go by what the central appraisal uses, which is one of the two sources we can quote, then we're overestimating the size and we'll probably overestimate the value. If we go with an appraiser's measurement, which is the other form of that we can use for quoting square footage, then that's probably going to be a much more accurate depiction of actual size and actual value. So how is it? And I tell my clients whenever I do have an appointment for listing a home for sale, is you can send 3 monkeys out to measure and you'll get 3 different measurements. And so my client last night said, how could it be so different? And I said, well, did you ever take geometry? And he said, yes. And I said, did you ever get a wrong answer? And he said, yes. I said, that's the reason. So there's lots of different ways to take measurements of a home, and there's going to be slight variations, but ultimately it's better to rely on a quote from an appraiser if you feel like the value is different. I have a good friend of mine, her property values just shot up because all values are going up in El Paso. But she said to me, the central appraisal says that my house is like 2,000 and something square feet, and it's actually not. She said, because her dad bought the house and then he sold it to her. And she said, my dad said it's only supposed to be like 1,400 square feet. I said, that's a lot of square footage. You need to get somebody out there and measure, and you need to present that to the Central Appraisal District so they can adjust your value and bring your taxes down. I've had situations where homes were wrong. They still had old things on the property that didn't even exist. I've seen situations where somebody filled a pool, but the tax office is still taxing them based on value as if the pool was still there. I had that situation happen with a little old lady way out in Socorro. She had different mobile homes on the property at different times. I've taken them down at some point. She even used to have a septic system. And in the 80s, when the city sewer came in, it got replaced, but the tax office was still charging her on a septic tank. So very important, always make sure that you check what your square footage is, because you do have a right to contest it and hopefully save yourself some money on taxes. So I hope this helps. Bye guys, have a good evening. Little reminder that my business is based on referrals. Without wonderful people such as yourself, I could not keep my business running. So if you happen to know of anybody, friend, family, coworker, neighbor that is interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, I would love to give them the best level of personal care. Thanks so much. Feel free to reach out, text, email, or call me. Thanks. Bye-bye.